Welcome to the House of Truth. Last time we talked about wisdom with parents and the great benefits from that gaining favor with God and man, about how to treat our parents right. Today we're going to talk about the power of wisdom, because wisdom has all these great benefits we talked about, but is wisdom alone enough? And we're going to look at that today. And we're going to begin here in 2 Samuel chapter 5, 6 through 8, to see an example. That's verses 6 through 8. And when the king and his men went to Jerusalem unto the Jebusites, the inhabitants of the land, which spoke unto David, saying, except you take away the blind and the lame, you shall not come here. You shall not come in here, thinking David cannot come in here. But David took the stronghold of Zion, the same as the city of David. And David said on that day, whosoever goes up into the gather and smites the Jebusites, the lame and the blind, and are hated of David, so he shall be chief and captain. Where have they said the blind and the lame shall not come into the house? So this is Jerusalem. And Jerusalem, to put this in perspective, in the days of Joshua, it was a city that was not taken. It's actually in the land, it's actually in Benjamin, not in Judah, right next to Judah. And David's from the tribe of Judah, but the Benjamites nor anyone else was able to take this during this time. And because of its location in this up on a hill, with this strong wall, no one be able to figure out how to do this. But David here has some wisdom about it. He says, go into the gutter, which is the water, which is there was perhaps an underground spring going into it, but perhaps it was like a sewer coming out. And he says, we can go in that way, then we'll be expecting it. But when he said that, him saying that did not cause it to be taken. He needed someone to actually. His plan was wise, but he needed somebody to actually take action to bring it to pass. And that's what we read here in 1 Chronicles 11, chapter 11, verse 6, 4 through 6. And David and all Israel went to Jerusalem, which is Jebus, where the Jebusites were, the inhabitants of the land. And the inhabitants of Jebus said to David, thou shalt not come here. Nevertheless, David took the castle of Zion, which is the city of David. And David said, whosoever shall smite the Jebusites first shall be chief and captain. So Joab, the son of Zeruiah, went up first and was chief. So David's wise plan only came to pass when someone put it into action. And that was Joab, who was the head of his host. That was the head of the entire army. In America, that'd be like being the Secretary of Defense, and it's still a general all rode into one. So, and it was for life. So, David had to kept his promise here to this guy, because David had the wisdom, but Joab took the action to put that wisdom in the plan, in the plan. And Solomon perhaps was thinking back on this when he wrote this in Proverbs 21, verse 22. A wise man scales the city of the mighty and casts down the strength, the confidence thereof. Because David was that wise man, and perhaps he just, for whatever reason, wasn't able to scale it himself. And remember, all of Israel was with them. So they came, an overwhelming force, but the Jebusites were confident, despite the overwhelming force that a source of water that could hold out against the siege indefinitely. They had all this confidence in the strength of their city. That confidence was cast down once Joab broke in and opened the city gate, and the armies of Israel came flooding in. So, wisdom wisdom only has power when it's accompanied by action. All the other things we've said are are no will never make a change by themselves. Knowing what to do, when to do it, how to do it, all those things we've been talking about. At the end of the day, you still have to do it, and that's the power of wisdom. The power of wisdom comes from having the wisdom and then actually doing the wise thing. So, and this what's and Solomon addresses this here in Proverbs 1, verses 20 through 27. Wisdom cries out. She utters her voice in the street. She cries in the chief place of the concourse, in the openings of the gates. In the city she utters her words, saying, how long, you simple ones, will you love simplicity? And the scorners delight in their scorning, and fools hate knowledge. Turn you to my reproof. Behold, I will pour out my spirit unto you. I'll make known to you, I'll make known my words unto you. Because I have called, and you refused. I have stretched out my hand, and no man regarded. But you have said it not but you have said it not all my counsel, and would none of my reproof. I will laugh at your calamity. I'll mock at your fear when your fears come. When your fear comes as desolation, destruction comes as a whirlwind, distress shall anguish, and anguish shall come upon you. I'm going to stop this. I'm going to make an improvement right here, right now. Okay. Okay. All right. Welcome to the House of Truth. Today we're going to talk about the power of wisdom. We've talked about wisdom, how it's knowing what to do, when to do it, how to do it. But is it enough by itself to bring about change in your life? Or is there something else that gives wisdom power? And we're going to look at that. We're going to begin by looking at an example of what we're going to be talking about today. Here, beginning in 2 Samuel 5, verses 6 through 8. And the king and his men went to Jerusalem unto the Jebusites, the inhabitants of the land, which spoke unto David, saying, except you take away the blind and the lame, you shall not come in hither. Thinking David cannot come in here. Unless David took the stronghold of Zion, and the same is the city of David. And David said on that day, whosoever goes up to the gutter and smites the Jebusites, the lame and the blind, that are hated of David, so he shall be chief and captain. Wherefore they said, the blind and the lame shall not come into the house. Okay, now Jerusalem was a stronghold of the Jebusites, and it was actually in the land, in the territory of Benjamin. If you read over in Joshua, but it was it was the next city over is the last city in Benjamin. Next city over was part of Judah's territory, but no one had been able to take it. Not Joshua, not the Benjamites. For 500 years, it sat there undefeated, and the day the citadel of David is built in the same spot. It's high above the rest of the city. It's got a cliff on one side and this high wall, and so the Jebusites, no one able to figure out how to get up there and take this thing. Had a water supply internal. They could outlast a siege. It could be sieged like a really long time and outlast them, like King Hezekiah did with the Assyrians much later of Jerusalem. So because of these things, but David had wisdom about how to do this, and it was go up to the gutter, and perhaps this was a spring going in, and perhaps there is a wall there, but it could have also the gutter here in King James. It could have also just been a sewer outlet, so their waste products could go out. They have an endless spring inside, and they just flush the water out. Okay, and he figured he was wise and knew nobody was guarding that. But the problem was, for whatever reason, he couldn't go himself, and he also knew, and perhaps he knew he needed someone to run the army, because he's becoming king. He's got other things he has to do sometimes. So he says, whoever will put this wise plan into action, I'll put him in charge. Now we're going to read about First Chronicles 11, verse 4 through 6, about who took him up on this. And David, all Israel went in Jerusalem, which is Jebus, where the Jebusites were the inhabitants of the land. The inhabitants of Jebus said unto David, thou shalt not come up here. Nonetheless, David took the castle of Zion, which is the city of David. And David said, whosoever smites the Jebusites first shall be chief and captain. So Joab, the son of Zeruiah, went up first and was chief. Now, so the city was taken not because of wisdom alone that David had, but because action. Someone applied the wisdom and actually took action. And that's the wisdom. The power of wisdom comes from from applying the wisdom, not just knowing what to do, how to do it, when to do it, but actually doing it. And King Shlomo Solomon may have been thinking back to as far when he wrote this incident, when he wrote this in Proverbs 21, verse 22. A wise man scales the city of the mighty and casts down the strength of the confidence thereof. Yeah, I mean, The wise man was David, who actually scaled it was Joab. So knowing what to do and then actually doing it. The Jebusites were mighty. They were inhabitants. No one able to take no one able to take their city and do all this stuff for 500 years. But their confidence was cast down when Joab followed David's plan. All of Israel was there. We saw a moment ago. Not one just Benjamin going against him. This time it was all 12 tribes. And once they opened the gate and once Joab broke in, got in there, took out a guard or two, opened the gate, and the armies of Israel were flooding the citadel. They lost all their confidence. Okay, the Jebusites, their confidence was destroyed in their high walls and everything. So power, the power of wisdom comes from applying wisdom. And we're going to delve into this some more as we go along. And we're going to begin here in Proverbs 1, verse 20 through 25, the words of Malach Shlomo, King Solomon, who says this, where he personifies wisdom as a woman. Wisdom cries without. She utters her voice in the street. She cries in the chief place of the concourse, in the openings of the gates. In the city she utters her words, saying, how long, you simple ones, will you love simplicity? The scorners delight in their scorning, and fools hate knowledge. Turn you at my reproof. Behold, I'll pour out my spirit into you. I'll make my words known to you. Because I have called, you refused. I have stretched out my hand, no man regarded. But you have said it not all my counsel, and with none of my reproof. Okay, so wisdom's out there calling. Wisdom's not hidden from us. God has given his wisdom in his word, and put a lot of it here in the writings of Solomon, particularly in the book of Proverbs, kind of make it a little convenient for us. Some of them are kind of bumper sticker slogans you have to think about, but they're all deep and they're meaningful. And it's right there. The trouble is people don't want to hear it. Or what? Now, and why? Now remember, there's three Hebrew words. Sometimes I'll translate it full, but here they're separated. They're translated separately, which is good. Now the simple ones. Remember, the simple ones are the ones that are either ignorant or inexperienced. And why are they refusing wisdom? Because they love simplicity. Wisdom brings complications, and we'll look at that later. Okay. They want to keep things simple. They like the simple life. They don't have to think too much. In America, we have the saying, ignorance is bliss. But really, ignorance can kill you. But they like the bliss of ignorance, of just going along their merry way and not having too much responsibility, not have to think too much about things. Now, a scorner is, I'll put these in order. The fool is the simple ones. You educate them, they'll listen. They won't. They become the fool perhaps. And remember, the fool has to learn the hard way. And what's the fool's problem? They hate knowledge. They don't want to hear it. Things may not be simple for them anymore. Maybe, but they know it all and don't want to hear it from anyone else. They hate knowledge, and they don't regard. They don't want to hear that what they're doing is not wise, and there's a wiser way to do it. And they have to learn the hard way. But the scorner, remember, they delight in their scorner. It's got to be called the mocker. That could be a fair translation. Delight in their mocking. They can't even learn the hard way. It's always somebody else's fault. It wasn't that what they were doing was stupid or what they were doing was wrong, even when they suffer the consequences for it. These are the type of people who in the South would say there ain't no cure for stupid. Okay. They can't even learn the hard way. And so when wisdom speaks to them, someone speaks wisdom, they mock it. And all three of these, for different reasons, won't just they don't want the simple ones love simplicity, don't want change. The fools don't want to tell them what to do. And the scorners will just make fun of it. Okay. But you're end up with the same result all three ways. Because even though wisdom was available to them, they didn't put it into practice for these reasons. And here's what wisdom has to say to them in Proverbs chapter 1. And we continue on verses 26 through 33. I will also laugh at your calamity. I'll mock when your fear comes. When your fear comes as desolation, destruction comes as a whirlwind. When distress and anguish come upon you, then shall they call upon me, but I will not answer. They shall seek me early, but they shall not find me. For they that hated knowledge and did not choose the fear of the Lord, they would none of my counsel. They despised my reproof. Therefore they shall eat the fruit of their own way and be filled with their own devices. For the turning of the way of the simple shall slay them, and the prosperity of fools shall destroy them. But whosoever hearkens unto me shall dwell safely, and be quiet from the fear of evil. Okay, because they mocked at wisdom, laughed at wisdom, didn't want to hear wisdom, wisdom's not going to treat them the same way. They're going to reap what they sow, eat the fruit of their own way, and fulfill their own devices. They're going to reap what they sow. And the time to get when that and people are procrastinators often want to wait until disaster strikes to make any kind of change. And the fact is that's too late it's too late often. When the flood came, when the rain started coming down for the flood in Noah's day, it was too late to build a boat, okay? It was too late to build the ark. It was too late to join Noah, get in the ark, etc. But so it's gonna so they're gonna be so they're ultimately gonna be destroyed. And this is the root of the problem. They hated knowledge. Remember, they didn't want to hear it, but mostly they did not choose the fear of the Lord. Remember, the fear of the Lord is the cornerstone of wisdom. And the foundation of the Lord of wisdom, as we saw when we talked about our very first lesson, the foundation of wisdom is the commandments of God in the Torah. Okay. It says right in there, it says right there in Deuteronomy 4, it'll make you wise and understanding people. And again, I will say it again, not every commandment applies to everyone. For example, only the high priest was the only one that had a commandment. He could not go to his own parents' funeral. So you can't just randomly you have to consider the context and who they apply to and under what circumstances. But the commandments of righteousness apply to everyone at all times in all circumstances. And that's really, sort of our bottom layer foundation. It's based on the fear of the Lord, though. So they're going to be destroyed. And notice the turning away of the simple will slay them. They're turning away, don't want to make change, don't like change, want to keep their simple life. Not, back to my, our example of Noah. What? You have to get up every day and build this stupid box. The word ark really means box, isn't really a boat. Build this stupid box, and do all these things, and help plan this and do all this stuff. And can I just go about my business and enjoy my life? They drowned, the ones who had that attitude. The prosperity of fools destroys them. Why? Because they trust in their prosperity instead of the Lord. The Jebusites were trusting their prosperity, and that's why, because that fool hates knowledge, doesn't want to hear it, because they think as long as they're prospering, they're safe, but they're not. What keeps us safe is listening to wisdom. And remember, we see that word listen, hearken, hear, like in the Shema, hear, O Israel. It means not just in one ear out of the other, but to hear and be moved to action. to hear and obey. It's like when my son was young, and I'd say to him, "Do you hear me, boy?" After give some sort of instruction. What do I mean by that? You understand what I want you to do, and are you going to do it? What's going to cause you to dwell safely is first listening to wisdom, but not just listening and mentally assenting, yeah, that's a good idea, but actually taking action, not being a hearer only, but a doer also. And that's going to give you safety, and you're not going to have the fear of evil, the fear of trouble. You're going to be quiet from that. You're just not going to be feeling it. Noah wasn't feeling the terror inside the ark the people outside the ark were feeling. And Solomon includes it. Solomon says this about wisdom again, portraying her as a woman. In Proverbs 9, verses 1 through 6. Wisdom has builded her house, and she has hewn down her 7 pillars. She has killed her beasts, she has mingled her wine, she has furnished her table. She has sent forth her maidens. She cries upon the highest place of the city. Whosoever is simple, let him turn in here. For him that wants understanding, she says to him, come and eat my bread and drink of the wine that I have mingled. Forsake the foolish and live, and go in the way of understanding. So wisdom has everything prepared, everything prepared for you to get the benefits of wisdom. To the simple, the one that's lacking understanding, he tells them, come in here, then you can get understanding. And notice, required, forsake the foolish. And this means you got to forsake those people that are foolish. And we've talked about the wise and the fool. Remember the golden rule on that, on distinguishing whether people are wise or fools, is this: the wise have their heart in the house of mourning, in the funeral home. They realize life's short, and that's they're going to meet with God, and that's driving their decisions. The foolish have their house in the murk. That's at a party house. They spend their days foolishly, aren't looking ahead, just living for the moment, enjoying the moment. And because of that, they do many foolish things. So if you want to live and go in the way of understanding, you've got to forsake the foolish. You might say, well, you just subscribe to all my friends. You got to get new friends. You got to leave those people. And I can tell you, I mean, in my own life, my grandmother had 43 children, and I was the celebrated one until I turned to God and started acting in wisdom. The fact is, I couldn't get most of them to go along with me. I had a cousin who turned to God first, who led me to the Lord. But the rest of them, didn't want anything to do with me. I had to forsake the foolish. I lost almost all my friends. My friends weren't living wisely. Because if I say I'm going to hang out with them, I would have been drugged into their foolishness. We'll talk about that some more. So if you want to live wisely, you got to be willing. And remember, this is the Savior life we saw it earlier. It's to keep you from destruction. Those who didn't want to forsake the foolish in the days of Noah and his family, those 8 people had to forsake the foolish, everyone else, to live. And you have to do the same thing. In Proverbs 2, verse 10 through 11, Solomon starts talking about, about wisdom, why you want that again. A little reminder here. When wisdom, how it benefits your heart and soul, as we're going to look at. When wisdom enters your heart, knowledge is pleasant to your soul. Discretion shall preserve you, and understanding shall keep you alive. Okay, well, you won't. Why you want this to enter your heart, and why you want it to be pleasant to your soul, is because it will preserve you and keep you alive. Okay, the results of it. Wisdom will give you discretion. Not to say the wrong thing at the wrong time to the wrong people. Except understanding will keep you. It'll guard you. It'll keep you out of trouble. And notice it's about the heart. Knowledge is pleasant to your soul. Your mind is part of your soul. Okay. So you want that attitude of knowledge being pleasant to you, because that's going to preserve you and keep you and guard you from trouble, keep you out of trouble. And Solomon talks some more about this in Proverbs 4, verse 23 through 27. Keep your heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life. Put away from you a froward mouth, and perverse lips shall put far from you. Let your eyes look right on, and let your eyelids look straight before you. Ponder the feet of the path of your feet, and let all your ways be established. Go not to the right hand nor to the left. Remove your foot from evil. Okay, notice. Remember that we're putting wisdom in the heart. Okay. Guard your heart with all diligence. Be careful what you let in your heart. Why? Because out of it are the issues of life. Everything in your life, everything in your life comes out of your heart. Remember what Yeshua said: out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. Okay. Your heart drives everything. You do. See, you don't want garbage getting in there, because that's going to cause you to make unwise decisions that can bring you disaster. I mean, you don't, if you got the wrong things in your heart, you'll get sexually involved with the wrong person, perhaps in the wrong way, or get married. You can get married to the wrong person. All kinds of, just anything you can think of. You can get in the wrong career. All this stuff. But notice you got to take some action here to do this. First, you have to guard your heart. Then what you do, you got to put away from you a froward mouth. And froward, we don't use that word much anymore, but it means obstinately defiant. Okay. Particularly the specs of God. That mouth that just wants to argue. Now, there is a time to argue. We talked about this with Solomon earlier, but that mouth that's just like, particularly that mouth that finds a problem for every solution. Okay. The reverse lips that aren't saying the right things. Okay. They aren't speaking in line with God's word. Okay. They're saying things like, a sign I actually saw someone lift up: we need to get off the God standard. Okay. Those are the words of perverse lips. All right. See, and notice you've got to do these things. The wisdom's been put in your heart if you've been reading God's word, but now you got to take action. You have to let your eyes look right on, and not go to the left or right. You got to know what God's called you to, and not only when pull you to one side or the other. You've got to ignore all distractions. I've been criticized, and probably other people in the same way are criticized often for having a quote unquote one-track mind. It's like, and usually the people who are criticizing them are not wise themselves. When you discover what God, you need to be like Jesus. It says he set his face like flint to go to Jerusalem. He just told his disciples that it was going to be betrayed, tried, mocked, beaten, crucified, killed if you went to Jerusalem. But he knew he was called to do it. He was called to die on the cross. And no one could persuade him otherwise. When he was out doing what he's supposed to be doing, single-minded about what he was doing. At one point, his mother and his brothers and sisters tried to get him, wanted to talk to him, tried to get him off track. Because they literally thought he had lost his mind. And he didn't even bring him in. He said, my mother and brother and sister, those who do the will of God. He was single-minded. And that's the way you need to be. You need to be single-minded about obeying God, first of all, particularly the commandments of righteousness that apply to everyone. No, I'm not going to go along with a lie to get along with people. The Bible makes very plain we should not lie. No, I'm not going to pass on that gossip, because the Bible says not to be a talebearer. And you say, well, maybe I saw on the internet, but look, the Bible's definition of it not being a talebearer is you've been able to verify it somehow, preferably by eyewitnesses. Yourself, you verified it actually happened. And your verification can't be so-and-so said so, unless they were an eyewitness. And even then, you got to have two. You got to check and we're supposed to test. We're supposed to test everything. And we're supposed to check out their testimony and see if their testimonies match and compare in extent. You wouldn't expect them to be perfectly identical, because then something's probably up. But they can't be totally contradicting either. And you pass along stories you haven't done all this through, you are tale-bearing. That includes just, if you're on Facebook or something, just passing along a post about something. And part of the problem with tale-bearing is it gets you off track. And this is where King David has fall with Bathsheba. He was supposed to be doing what? Taking care of the Lord's business, taking care, destroying his enemies and all this stuff. That's particularly why it says David had a man after God's own heart. You look at it in context, it says because he was destroying the enemies of God. That was his primary thing. He wasn't after God's heart when committing adultery with Bathsheba and having one of his mighty men killed by Joab. He wasn't pursuing a man after God's own heart when he did that. It tells you because he was getting rid of the enemies of God that were still in the promised land. And that's what he's supposed to have been doing, but he got off track one day. If you read that story, and we'll talk about this, I'll probably have to do a series on David sometime. We'll go into this more detail. But because he wasn't out taking care of the business, he didn't have his eyes straight ahead, focused and task oriented like he generally was. He saw Bathsheba, and it was all downhill from there. So you need to remove your foot from evil, keep the commandments of God, the commandments of righteousness, particularly, that apply to everyone. But also know what God's called you to do, and don't let anyone persuade you to do anything different. You got to be single-minded about it. Now, in Proverbs 24:13-14, we read this: "My son, eat you honey because it is good, and the honeycomb which is sweet to your taste. So shall the knowledge of wisdom be in your soul when you have found it. There shall be a reward, and your expectations shall not be cut off." So, just as most people like sweet things, like sugar and stuff, the problem is often people like them too much. We're told not to eat too much, because it can cause you to vomit, but it can cause you all kinds of medical issues and stuff too. Well, the same way your mouth likes sweet things, people's mouth, the same way your body craves sugars or whatever in general, particularly young children, that should be how you are with the knowledge of wisdom. Why? Because there's going to be a reward. There's going to be a reward. When you're single-minded, like we talked about, you're going to accomplish the goal that God set out for you. And your expectations is not going to be cut off. You're not going to fall short of accomplishing that thing that God called you to do. And when you're like that, then you want the knowledge of wisdom so you can accomplish it. And you seek after it, and it's sweet to you. Because the power of wisdom comes from doing, taking action to accompany the wisdom. Okay, but not everyone's like that. Again, every time we talk about the wise, we kind of have to talk about the fools too. That contrast is very helpful. And in Proverbs 17:16, we read this: wherein is there a price in the hand of the fool to get wisdom, seeing he has no heart for it. I mean, yeah, sometimes we pay for wisdom, like we pay for education. But maybe you're having a legal issue and you need the wisdom of a lawyer, and they may, some things are small things that may take for free, but some things that may require a little more, and they know how to handle it, and you need to pay them to do it. But but better yet, learn if it's something you're going to need often, pay to get the wisdom. But the fool doesn't want to do that. He has no heart for wisdom. He's out. Remember, his heart's in the party house. He's not looking ahead. Anything he spends to get wisdom is money he can't spend on having a good time right now. So the fool's not going to seek out for wisdom. But if we're wise, we're willing to pay for it. And because and this is what this is what Solomon tells us to do in Proverbs 23, verse 23. Buy the truth and sell it not. Also wisdom and instruction and understanding. Okay. So yeah, pay for. What does it mean by sell it not? How would you sell the truth? I mean, in the example I gave, the wisdom, the lawyer's selling the wisdom, but he still has it. But it's more like the ideal of let's say I have an antique book my grandfather left me, and I sell it to someone who collects antique books. Then I no longer have it. You sell the truth, you sell wisdom, instruction, understanding by not putting them into practice, by acting like you don't have them, like you don't have them. You sell the truth by believing lies instead of the truth and clinging on to it and refusing to let go of it. So he's saying is get the truth and don't let go of it. Something about wisdom and instruction and understanding. And their only power to help in your life is to put them in practice. And the moment you don't put them in practice, you're letting them go. Don't let them go. But the fool is not like that. Because as we read in Proverbs 24:7, wisdom is too high for a fool. He opens not his mouth the gate. Remember, he doesn't want to hear it. He doesn't want to put any kind of effort into it that will take away from his momentary pleasure. And here, he doesn't even want to get it for free. Okay. What it's talking about is at the gate. Remember, that's where the judgments were held. It's also where the old men sat. And people can also often ask them questions, can go to the elders and just, for free, say, hey, I have this problem. Anyone got any idea? Anyone got any idea how to solve it? But, you go there and you have to listen to these old men talk however long they talk to answer the question. Some may be short, some may not be. They may have a discussion among themselves. But it's costing you nothing except your time. But a fool does not have his eyes up there on wisdom. Notice high, looking up. He's not looking up, not looking to the future, not looking to the day he sees God. His eyes are low, they're on the ground, they're on the earth, they're in the here and now. So the fool not only will not pay for wisdom, he won't even go get it for free because he just doesn't see the value of it because he's only concerned about the here and now. His heart is in the party house. So now we're looking at another contrast here about the wisdom and about the foolishness of wisdom as well. And we're going to see this is, well, we'll just see. Proverbs 17, verse 24. Wisdom is before him that has understanding, but the eyes of the fool are in the ends of the earth. Okay, him that has understanding, he's got the understanding, he's went to the gates, except knows what to do. It's before him because he took action to get understanding, okay? But the fool doesn't know. The fool is just looking for the easy way out all the time. Their eyes are in the earth. It means they're just going around looking in all the wrong places. Okay. Wisdom's available. Wisdom's free. There's people who willing to give it to you. There's the word of God, except, but they don't want to hear it. They don't want to see it. And when they get in trouble, they're running around everywhere, usually asking other foolish people what to do. Because wisdom is not before them, because they did not want understanding. And in Proverbs 18, 1 through 2, verses 1 through 2, we read this. Through desire, a man having separated himself seeks and intermeddles with all wisdom. A fool has no delight in understanding, but that his heart may discover itself. Okay, so how does a man seek an intermeddle with wisdom? And intermeddle means, sort of play around and get, kind of go what if, so to increase your understanding, so you're understanding the wisdom better, and and that kind of thing. Saying, well, how can I apply this except by separating himself? And the man is to desire it first through desire. Because the man wants wisdom, he's going to seek and take the time to gain it. And to do that, he has to separate himself. And separate himself from who? From foolish people, particularly. And it's like that, it's like in college, you got that one guy who's not going to the parties and stuff, but studying. Who's not going out there and getting drunk and getting, falling by the trap. Remember, we talked about this with wisdom with women. If a woman wants to get you sexually involved, and it's obvious from context Solomon, a lot of women actually want this because it's a means to an end for them, and they're not wanting to get married to you first. It's a trap. Well, he's not getting involved in all that, so he's separating himself. He may not have a lot of friends. In fact, if he's only one of the wise one in the group, he may not have any friends. But he did it because he desires wisdom, and he loves it. But the fool doesn't delight in understanding. You hear these people say, like, "Well, I just had to find myself," and stuff like that. It's got but the main thing is discover itself. They want to know. It's very selfish, is what it is. Discover itself. What makes me happy? What can I do to get the maximum amount of happiness today? The maximum amount. How can I feel the best today? How can I have my best life now? That is the voice of the fool, okay? And because he wants the best, he wants it right now. And he doesn't even want to do something to give himself the best life now. He's like, what's the most fun I can have at this moment today? Hearts in the party house, remember, in the house of mirth. Looking for that next laugh, that next good time. And it's all very selfish and self-centered, like the prodigal son was when he ran off with his father's with his part of the inheritance. It's been on riotous living. It was all about him. That's the way the fool is. And the wise man, as we mentioned before, is often driven by concern for others. That's why he'll separate himself and do these things. Love for others, the fool's love is mostly for themselves. Look out for number one, that kind of thing. So we read in Ecclesiastes 1, verse 18 this. In much wisdom is much grief. He that increases knowledge increases sorrow. Yes, wisdom comes with a price, and this is that price. Now, why? You might wonder. Because when you have much wisdom, you're grieving for other people. You have sorrow for other people because you see things the way they are. You can see the train wreck coming before it came. Noah could see that all these people were going to drown. He was moved with fear, we're told. He believed God's word and acted on it. And he says, we're also, he was a preacher of righteousness. For 100 years, he preached trying to get people saved from the flood that was coming. And he couldn't get anyone to get on the boat but his wife, three of his sons, and three of his daughters. And we don't know that he didn't have more. And their three wives. And we don't know that he didn't have more children. He lived 600 years for the flood. Maybe he had more than 3 kids. And if so he saw this coming because of his wisdom. It gave him much grief. It caused him to grieve for other people. And his knowledge increased his sorrow. As he understood God's going to bring judgment and started understanding how, the more he learned about, the more sorrow it brought him. But he lived, he survived, and he wasn't destroyed. So getting wisdom and increasing knowledge does not make you the life of the party, okay? It doesn't make you fun. And we try to talk to people about these things. The foolish people do not want to hear it. They'll go walk off, accept. They're just not interested. They can leave you alone and isolated, but you're going to be better off in the end. And this is probably the number one reason why foolish people don't seek wisdom, because they are selfish, self-oriented, self-absorbed, and oriented and geared towards what's the most fun I can have at the moment. And when they start getting wisdom and knowledge about things, start seeing things the way they really are, it just puts a damper on their party, okay? But the wise, because they're concerned about other people, not just themselves, will gain it and will seek this nonetheless. And also, that's also why it puts a damper on their party, so to speak, not because they're concerned about themselves, because wisdom is going to deliver them, but because they're concerned for other people. So we have to act in wisdom. As we said, the power of wisdom comes from acting on it. And we read this in Proverbs chapter 18, verses 20 through 21. A man's belly shall be satisfied with the fruit of his mouth. The increase of his lips he shall be filled. Death and life are in the power of the tongue. They that love it shall eat the fruit thereof. So notice we satisfy the fruit of your mouth. If you say the right things and stuff, you're always going to have what you need. You're going to be filled. But notice, it starts with the power of the tongue is life and death. Now that can literally be physically true. Study after study has shown that people who have cancer, sometimes even severe forms. Some of them don't even have that severe, but they go in there with, I'm doomed. They start talking death. Even though they get the same treatments as someone else, they die. But someone else who had the exact same condition starts talking life about it. God's with me. He's going to help me. I'm going to live. I'm going to beat this thing. And most of them do. And that's even true of severe forms of cancer. People have had severe forms with no hope from doctors. No hope from medical science, who still came out cancer-free because they talked about how they were going to live and not die, how they were going to declare the works of the Lord. And it's not just empty talking. We're not talking about just wishful thinking here. It's backed up by God's word, okay? But it does start with you saying it. You can know God's word, and still, if death's coming out of your mouth, yes, there is a time appointed for man to die, and you will die from something eventually, and you cannot just never die by never acknowledging that. But your first instinct should be to talk life. but it's more than about that. It's about the attitude in life in general. If some that attitude of the attitude of death is where you're looking for a problem to every solution. The attitude of life is where you're looking for a solution to every problem. And if you're looking for a problem to every solution, you'll find one probably. If you're looking for life that is a solution to every problem, you'll probably find one. And we're not talking about being wishful thinking and unrealistic here. I mean, often it might come out like this. That won't work, but I think this will. So you're looking for a solution. You're acknowledging that solution won't work, but you're looking for one that will. But the fool, particularly the simpleton who doesn't like to keep things simple, doesn't want a solution often, because the solution may require complications and all and perhaps blood, sweat, and tears, as the saying goes. So they're just like, well, I mean, people have actually said, well, it'd be easier just to die. Doesn't mean it's better. Nonetheless, because things, what's the point of living? I won't be having fun like I was, except if you love life, if you love saying the right words, you're gonna get the fruit of it either way. You are gonna reap what you sow starts with your words. And remember, the issue is really the heart. Out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. So what you need to do is get God's word inside you and start speaking that, not just like some sort of mantra where it's just empty words, but from your heart because you believe them. But again, the fool finds a problem to every solution, and the wise looks for a solution to every problem. That's the essence of the life attitude and the death attitude. And we need to have that life attitude, looking for a solution to every problem. And I want you to notice, I didn't say that solution is not ignoring the problem, pretending it's not there. That's foolish. In Jeremiah, we're told you cannot heal a wound by saying it's not there. But acknowledging, yeah, there's a problem, but we are going to overcome it. There's giants in the land, but God's with us and we're going to take them. As opposed to there's giants in the land and they're going to destroy us. They both got what they said. And in Proverbs 20-7, we read this about this again, about taking action. Wisdom requires action to have any power. The just man walks in his integrity. His children are blessed after him. Okay, he walks in his integrity. He's just because he doesn't just talk the talk. He walks the walk. He walks his talk. His halakha, the words of his mouth, his life matches it. That's integrity. You gotta have integrity like an orange. You cut an orange you cut an orange in half. It's orange on the outside. It's orange on the inside, and you don't find banana in there or fruit or apple or something else. Okay, your integrity needs to be that way. What's on the outside is a reflection of what's on the inside. And your children are going to be blessed after him. And because he's got that wise mindset, he's looking for a solution to every problem. He's going to not leave his children to inherit a bunch of problems from him that he could have solved. Okay, because your children don't just inherit your stuff. They also inherit everything from you, good or bad. And that's what we're going to look at next. Ecclesiastes 7, verse 1-3. A good name is better than precious ointment in the day of death than the day of one's birth. It is better to go into the house of mourning than to go into the house of feasting. For that is the end of all men, and the living will lay his heart to it. Sorrow is better than laughter, for by the sadness of countenance the heart is made better. All right. Now, precious ointment means, like expensive perfume, whatever. Something makes you, something you put on there to perhaps he'll make you attractive. Well, good name's better than that. And part of the inheritance he leaves to his children, they're blessed after him, is a good name. People be like, you don't want your kid, you don't want people going about your kids. Oh, that's so and so's kid. He was no good, and they're probably no good too. You want them saying, oh, that's whose kid that is. We knew his father. We knew his parents. And they were trustworthy. And we know they raised their kids right. You won't be trying to cover up something like precious ointment. A lot of people are trying to put perfume over stink. You won't need to, because you have a good name was left to you, and a good name for you at the time. Now, if you're righteous, the day of your death is better than the day of your birth. To live is Christ, to die is gain. That when you're born, all the trouble of this life is in front of you. All the evil that you're ever going to experience is in front of you. If you're wise and you fear the Lord, you're on God's side. Okay, that means. But the day you die, that's all behind you. You're not if you're on the side of the Lord, you're never going to have another bad day. You're never going to have to deal with another problem after you die. You're never going to have to do. You're no longer be in the presence of evil surrounding you all the time. And being grieved by stupid people. You want to help people you love, but they just keep doing foolish things. You won't have that grief anymore. So, therefore, it's wise. It's better to go in the house of mourning, the house of feasting, because we're all going to die, and the living will lay it to his heart. I had a friend of mine recently say his father's getting very old, and he's perhaps going to die, and he said it made him struggle with his own mortality. Made him aware of it. He's starting to think differently. Why? Because of the house of mourning. House of feasting, that place where people are having fun and everything. People aren't thinking about the long term. They're thinking about the short term. For this reason, sorrow is better than laughter. Because by sadness of the countenance, your heart is made better. When you start getting your heart right with God, you start guarding it. You start getting junk out of it, because you realize the shortness of life. You start trying to live wiser. And you start taking action to not just know wisdom, but to apply it, so you can experience the power of wisdom, and perhaps leave a good name. Start creating a good name if you have a bad one, and start and trying to leave something for your children that's worth inheriting. Now we're going to look at some things that Solomon says we've got to watch out for. These things are absolutely destructive in your life. Can be. And the first one's here in Proverbs 20, verse 1 through verse 1. Wine is a mocker. Strong drink is raging. Whoever deceived thereby is not wise. Okay, mocker means it makes a fool of you. As we talked about wisdom with women, we're told to not be involved with drinking and women particularly, and people who don't even like each other, men and women, have been known to wake up in bed naked next to each other. Don't remember a thing, but hoping the woman's not pregnant. Okay. And people act stupid and do dumb things. And people laugh about what the stupid thing they did when they was drunk earlier. Later people are laughing. because alcohol will make a fool of you. It can also cause you to be raging. And what that is usually people already have the anger, but now their judgment's impaired. Like my friend I talked about before long ago. His parents are divorced, and he's probably angry about that. Perhaps his father mistreated his mother or whatever. And we get drunk. One time he got drunk and hit a brick wall with his fist. Probably broke several of his fingers. Didn't feel a thing at the time, but he felt it for the next few months because the strong drink took away his restraint. Okay. And you are a fool, not wise, if you're deceived by this. And the best policy towards alcohol is to drink none at all, ever. My grandfather's brothers got in all kinds of trouble. He never drank, and he made me promise that me and my household would not drink alcohol forever, except for Methuselah purposes. And that's the way it's been. I don't drink. My children don't drink. And Methuselah means medical purposes, like if there's something cough syrup or something, okay? But we don't drink, and we don't go around getting drunk. People drink alcohol, they get drunk, they may not remember. Often in a drunk driving case, the drunk driver will actually not come out pretty much unharmed sometimes and kill a family. They'd be sorry, they'd be genuinely sorry they did it, but there's nothing to do to make that family not be dead anymore, okay? They were a fool because they were deceived by alcohol. And people will say, well, Jesus turned water into wine. Yes, but if you understand the context of back then, the wine was like Paul said about Timothy, add a little wine to your water for your stomach's sake. Not add a little water to your wine like people think today, okay? And the wine was, it was more like the alcohol content of beer than wine like we're thinking of. And at the last supper, they go, well, they drank 3 cups. No, it says he took a cup and passed it. They took 3 sips of wine, not 3 cups of wine, staggering out to the Mount of Olives with him, okay? Because they were drunk. It is not the drinking alcohol is simply not wise. So you're going to be drinking to the point where you're drunk. And I know the rabbis teach people at Purim that you're supposed to be so drunk you can't distinguish Haman from Mordecai. But it's still a rebellion against God's word here in Proverbs. It just is not wise to drink alcohol in general and to get drunk ever. So we got to put into action our wisdom by not drinking alcohol. In Proverbs 27:4, we read this: wrath is cruel and anger is outrageous, but who is able to stand before envy? Now remember, wrath is anger put into action, okay? Like the wrath of God. And let's face it, the wrath of God is cruel. He's giving people what they deserve, but still burning forever and ever in the lake of fire. You gotta admit that's pretty cruel, okay? I mean, he didn't want to send him there. He sent his son to die for him. He did everything he could to keep him from going there, but at the end of the day, if they remain under his wrath, abide under his wrath, that's what's going to happen to him. Anger is outrageous. And again, anger is not a sin. Remember, 1 John 3:4, sin, whosoever transgresses the law, whoever sins also transgresses the law, for sin is transgression of the law. Sin is transgression of the commandments of the Torah, the ones that apply to you. And again, not every applies to everyone, but the commandments of righteousness apply to everyone. But anger will make you do outrageous things. And one example we can think of is Messiah, Yeshua, Jesus, in the temple. It says he looked upon them with anger. He made a whip of cords. He took some time doing this. He drove them out. Those cords were to beat them, if to force them out. It was outrageous. So again, be angry, but don't sin. Don't let your anger cause you to transgress God's laws of righteousness, particularly. But envy. I mean, envy is just, I mean, envy just comes first of all, not being content with what God's given you. The Bible says, having food, clothing, and shelter, we should be content. But not, but when someone gets into envy, it comes from breaking the 10th commandment, the only one that's an inward condition of your heart, not an outward action. Thou shalt not covet. You shall not desire what someone else has. Now, that doesn't mean if you don't have a wife, you can't desire a wife, but you can't desire the other guy's wife, okay? And once you start doing this, and if you comparing themselves to each other, they became fools. It says in Romans. Once you start going, well, oh gosh, I wish I had a car as nice as theirs, or really a lot of times people get in that mode, then they want one better than the other person's or whatever, huh? And they start becoming envious of them. Man, why do they get all the power? And why do they get all this and all that? And envy will absolutely destroy your life. It'll wreck your health. It'll cause you to become bitter. It'll cause you to get that negative mindset where you see a problem for every solution. That'll bring you death. But most of all, it'll rob you of enjoying the life you have now. Remember, we looked at words of Solomon before. Enjoy your life. It is better to enjoy what you do have than complain about what you don't have. But envy will stop you from doing that. And here's one more thing Solomon says we must not do. And remember, these are on us to do. We have to. Wisdom only has power when we take action to act on it. If we want it, that's absolutely destructive. We got to avoid. Say not you. What is the former? What cause is the cause of the former days of bare knees, where you do not inquire wisely concerning this? Looking back at the past and going, why were things better? Will absolutely rob you of the joy you could be having today. And often when people do that, they're not remembering things clearly either. They're only remembering the good times, forgetting the bad things. And sometimes the reason why they're not better today, they were better back then, because you were making foolish decisions back then. You stacked the bill back then, but now you're paying it off. Okay. You made decisions that have a negative impact on you the rest of your life. And all you can do is like, well, that was so much fun. And if you think that way, you're a moron. Okay. You're forgetting about the consequences. It is not wise to go around thinking about the good old days and why they're better, because they'll rob you from the days you got today. They're like envy. They'll cause you to be bitter, and you're often deceiving yourself. Those things that you think were so much better back then were the cause of the problems. Often the cause of the problems you have today. Instead of thinking back to the, and I've seen some people do this with and usually it's high school or college when they talk about these things. And those are the days in their life when they didn't have much responsibility. And they were making foolish decisions that set the course of their life that caused them all the problems they're experiencing today. Good or bad, forget the former days. Remember, that's a distraction. We're to have our eyes set ahead, looking straight ahead to what God's called us. Our eyes on the prize, moving towards the high prize, the calling of God in Christ Jesus. Okay. We need to be moving towards that calling. Okay. And you can't move forward by looking back. Good or bad, forget what's behind you. Remember the lesson, but forget the mistake. If forget that. And don't deceive yourself and thinking things were better. If you've been living wisely, they're better now. You're wiser than you were then. Your heart's better, as we saw earlier. Now we're looking at three more things about where you need to take action to make wisdom effective and gain the power of wisdom. And we're going to start here in Proverbs 25:23. The north wind drives away rain, so is an angry countenance a backbiting tongue. Now in Israel, where Solomon's writing is from, If wind started blowing from the north, if it's been raining in a rainy season, the wind starts blowing from the north, that wind tends to be dry because there's not much up there. If you go straight up, if you go straight north from Jerusalem, you don't get more ocean to or right till you get to the Mediterranean Sea. There might be some of the Black Sea, but it's generally that wind is coming from the north and maybe a little bit to the northeast, particularly. You wouldn't get any. There wouldn't be anything to get all the way up to the Arctic Ocean. The air is very dry and it drives away the rain. You know the rain's going to end. Okay, that when that north wind starts coming. Well, in the same way, if someone has a backbiting tongue, they're talking about other people to you behind their backs, or maybe they're talking, they're backbiting you. They're talking about how bad you are to other people, and often again, it's tale-bearing. It's not based on truth. But even it is, Yeshua said, if you have a problem with someone, go to them yourselves. You alone, as we talked about last week. When we talked about, no, I guess the week before that, we talked about it. Okay. You alone go for them, like Yeshua, Jesus said. And they won't listen. You take 2 or 3 others, so you got some witnesses. And they still want you. Then you go to your group. And they don't. You put them out of the group. If they're in the wrong. Now remember, be humble. You may discover there's something you didn't know, or maybe that you even were in the wrong somehow. Perhaps something you acted foolishly because you didn't know something or whatever. Okay, but if they're backbiting, how do you deal with that? You have an angry countenance. Notice you haven't taken the action, but your face is showing your anger. And usually when someone has a backbiting tongue, they're laughing and they're trying to get you to join them in their foolishness. And when you give them an angry face, it's the last thing they want. They are not they don't want to make you angry. They want you to join them. And that will put an end to it. But you have to take some action. You don't go along with them. You let them know you don't appreciate their backbiting tongue, and you let your face show it. In Proverbs 27:20, we read something else you've got to consider. If put wisdom into action, to get the power of wisdom of putting it into action. Hell and destruction are never full, so the eyes of a man are never satisfied. Well, it's true. I mean, in Isaiah, it literally says in the Hebrew, hell, it says in King James, hell moves beneath you. In Hebrew, it literally says it expands to meet you, or expands to. Yeshua said hell wasn't made for one single person in his life. It was only made for the devil and his angels. So when a person goes in, it literally grows, but it's like the stomach and keep growing. Or like the womb. That's, starts with a small seed, but it'll keep growing to, however big the baby is, right? And destruction's never full. Neither one are like, oh, that's enough. Well, same way, a man's never like, okay, I can go blind now. I've seen enough, but there's a deeper meaning to it than that. If you're goal-oriented, task-oriented like David, you never like, well, I accomplished everything. That's it. I'm done. Time to sit down. No, you're like, well, okay, now how can I make some more improvements? What's next, God? I did what you asked me to. Now what? And that's the wise person. I accomplished what you set me out to do. Now what do you want me to do? And as long as you're alive, you keep looking for what God wants you to do. But the foolish person's eyes are never satisfied either. Well, that was fun. Now how can I have more fun today? How can I can avoid not hearing wisdom and stuff, but what can I do to bring me the most, it's all about me with the foolish person. And their eyes are never satisfied. They're never like, well, I've had all the fun I want. They're always looking, even their eyes are even to the ends of the earth, looking for solutions to their problems, and they get in messes, usually from other foolish people, and more ways to have fun and cause mischief. Their eyes are never done looking for those things. So it's true, good or bad. And Solomon leaves with this last bit about wisdom, the power of wisdom that comes from putting it into practice. Here's what he says in Ecclesiastes 9, verse 4. For to him that's joined to all the living there is hope. For a living dog is better than a dead lion. Of course, a lion, king of the beasts, we think of something regal. We read before, it doesn't fear anything. But the fact is, it can end up dead. The Messiah go out there and kill him with spears, and other people kill him with guns, huh? And and they've also been known to be killed by some other animals sometimes. Particularly, a pack of hyenas can take out a lion sometimes. Well, they're cautious to do so because the lion may kill one or two first. But they can't. They may go after the cubs, but the adult lions, they'll even kill an adult male lion if they're desperate. But my goodness, a dead lion isn't a threat to anyone. And Solomon may have thought of his own father David when he wrote this, because remember, David was in danger for his life, and he acted like he was mad. And he got on the ground barking like a dog, etc. And of course, the dog, is metaphoric in the Bible all the time as someone held in low regard. The bottom of the heap, but you're alive, okay? And David lived. The king's like the Philistine king was like, "Why'd you bring this madman in front of me for?" And a lot of cultures have a superstition: if you kill a madman, basically have demons in them, and the demons are coming to you. So they don't want to kill madmen, right? Angry men, or not angry, not crazy people, right? So David did this and acted like a dog, and and slobbered like a dog with rabies, etc. Because when you're alive, there's hope. Now, hope's not just for you, it's for other people. And I've mentioned before about my son. My son got COVID and was dead, according to the attending physician. Not just not breathing, not just heart not beating, brain not waving. For 8 minutes. But me and my wife prayed, and God brought him back to death, brought him back to life. And it wasn't about my son. He knew the Lord. He was better off dead, like all believers. Like we talk about, better the day of one's death. But his children weren't better off without him. I don't want my grandchildren growing up without a father. So, we took action, and we applied wisdom, took action, and God brought him back to life. Because when he's alive, there's hope for other people. There's hope now that my son will go out. He does everything he can to bring the gospel to people. There's hope for other people. For himself, he was better off. But the wise man is not focused on himself. He's focused on God and other people. And my son is bringing hope to other people because he's alive. And he got some disabilities, so they think may think, the disabled often our society looks down on. I mean, even though they try to accommodate them, there's still always those people. Those foolish people, might, and they may think of him as a living dog, but it's better he's that way than a dead lion, because he's bringing hope to other people. And he's not a living dog, by the way. He may be disabled somewhat, but he's more lion-hearted than he was before. So, bottom line is, the wisdom of power comes from taking action. The power of wisdom comes from taking action on the wisdom we have. And you need to do it not for yourself, not just for yourself, but mostly to bring hope to other people, the hope of the gospel. That's all I have for this week. Until next week, shalom.